what you think you know is actually the obstacle to what you already know. I mean, that's the simplicity of it. You know, the fundamental requirement for learning anything new is recognition that you do not know anything, right? So once we've attracted a few guys through the promise of an experience, then of course we can present the teaching, which is everything that you think you know is actually wrong. You know nothing, because everything that you think you know is about nothing. You think you know something about nothing, so therefore you know nothing. And if you can understand that you know nothing, you can perhaps begin to learn something. Or remember the something that you do know about the everything that you are. I think that could be a lot of fun. Certainly I have fun with it. I enjoy teaching because to be engaged with this is to be in the experience and in the recognition that you are what you teach. So I love lessons like God is in everything I see. This is an extraordinary point in the mind training curriculum. God is in everything I see. God, you've been looking for God, and now you've discovered that God is in everything you see. God is everywhere. How do you see? That's a good question. How do you see? You see by touch, that's seeing, touching, tasting, smelling, hearing, seeing, and conceiving. Conceiving is another way of seeing in the mind. These are all mechanisms that you have evolved for seeing something that's not there, and by seeing something that's not there, learning not to see and obscuring what is there to see, right? Is this familiar to the mind training program that we're in, right? So now you're discovering that God is in everything that you see. God is in everything that you see because God is in your mind. If God is in your mind, God must be present everywhere and in everything that you see. I think it's a great lesson. And to discover that, what's it going to say? The idea for today explains why you can see all purpose in everything. You can see all purpose in everything. Everything, objectively, will teach you purpose, meaning. It explains why nothing is separate by itself or in itself. And it explains why nothing you see means anything. Isn't that great? I love it. It explains the first lesson. Because everything that you see as a separate identity has no meaning at all. What is it that you perceive? I mean, the whole science of the perceptual nature of your mind is an extraordinary mechanism. When you learn to understand the nature of perception and how it is that you can maintain the belief that you can perceive an illusion and that you maintain its reality within your mind. How do you actually do that? These are the mechanisms of perception, and to reveal or uncover the nature of the mind that is maintaining that is an extraordinary thing, because it puts you in a position where you can understand that by changing your mind, everything will change. That you've given meaning to everything because your mind is occupied with meaningless thoughts. Isn't it? Isn't that the lesson? that nothing you see means anything because you're occupied in your mind with meaningless thoughts about shit, about stuff, about things, people, about the past, about problems, conflicts, about the body's needs, what's going to happen, etc., etc. The mind is in a constantly having thoughts about stuff. And these are not thoughts, are they? They're not thoughts. It appears to be thinking. We've called it thinking, but Jesus corrects even that idea. He said, that's not thinking. How can you call that thinking? That's not thinking. That's image making. You're making up a world by having thoughts. You're making up something that doesn't exist. You're giving it meaning, and therefore it's not nothing, it is now something. And it appears to be solid and real. Now you've got to get your particle collider in an attempt to understand what it is. Giving it meaning, giving it life, breathing life into it by giving it meaning to yourself. But the meaning that you've given it is no meaning, because the meaning that it has is the meaning that you've given it as an individual, as a separate, isolated individual. You can't share that meaning with anyone else. But the meaning that it really has is to teach you what? That you do not understand anything you see. Wouldn't that be the meaning of the chair if you were in the mind training program? Of undoing what you have made, it would have to start with recognizing that the chair can teach you about yourself if you're willing to relinquish everything you think you know about that chair for an instant, right? That you're willing to recognize that that chair exists as an image in your mind, and that image is existent and dependent on its existence on your belief that you know what it is. Right? Your past learning has established it as a real image in your mind that has no relationship with you as the observer or the perceiver of it. Right? That's the condition of the world. That everything exists separate from the mind that perceives it. So the reversal of your perceptual relationship with everything is dependent on this lesson. God is in everything I see because God is in my mind, along with my meaningless thoughts. Right? And so my function then is to recognize when I'm not thinking, so that I can relinquish not thinking and return my mind to thinking with God. And the chair can teach me to think with God. Through what? Emptiness. My mind is empty, then I will see God in everyone and everything. Empty of my own need to justify an identity that is not who I am. So is that okay if I teach it like that? God is in everything I see explains why nothing you see means anything. In fact, it explains every idea we've used so far, and all the subsequent ideas as well. Today's idea is the whole basis for vision. You'll probably find this idea very difficult to grasp at the beginning. You may find it silly, irreverent, senseless, funny, and even objectionable. Certainly God is not in a table, for example, as you see it. Yet we emphasized before that a table shares the purpose of the universe And what shares the purpose of the universe shares the purpose of its creator. Today you can begin to look on all things with love, appreciation, and open-mindedness. Maybe you don't see them now. Would you know what is in them? For nothing is as it appears to you. Its holy purpose stands beyond your little range. And when vision has shown you the holiness that lights up the world, you will understand today's idea perfectly. You will understand how you could ever have found, and you will not understand how you could ever have found it difficult. And this is from the review lessons. God is in everything I see. Behind every image I have made. See that? I mean, that's a great instructional statement in itself, isn't it? The acceptance of this course, and this course, we understand this course will not be accepted unless it is accepted in its entirety. Right? You can't really call yourself a teacher or a student of this Course in Miracles unless you're willing to accept it in its entirety. Is that true? I mean, I could find the place where it says that, but it says that. Right? Otherwise, why bother if you're only going to poke around a bit, right? Because if this course promises to salvation, why would you not give everything to it? Give yourself to it. Behind every image I've made is an acceptance that what you perceive is an image in your mind that you have made. It includes everything that you perceive, doesn't it? Everyone you've ever known, all the figures in the dream that you've heard about and read about in history. I love that. All the animals, all the birds, and all the flowers, all the trees. And everything is an image in your mind. You've got an image of a tree. What does the tree represent? The tree represents yourself, obviously, your self-concept. Behind every image I have made, the truth remains unchanged. So the tree, or the chair, which looks like it's made from a tree, behind the image of the chair, the truth remains unchanged. Behind every veil I have drawn across the face of love, its light remains undimmed. Beyond all my insane wishes is my will, united with the will of my Father. God is still everywhere and in everything forever. And we who are part of him will yet look past, will look past all appearances and recognize the truth beyond them all. God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. In my own mind, behind all my insane thoughts of separation and attack, is the knowledge that all is one forever. So that knowledge is present. And I have not lost the knowledge of who I am because I've forgotten it. It has been kept for me in the mind of God, who has not left his thoughts. And I, who am among them, and am one with them, and one with him. These are great lessons. And they're just the beginning. That's actually lesson 30. Or lesson 56 in the review lessons. So you are a perfect idea in the mind of God. And that's your alternative to having imperfect ideas that are objects that you perceive outside of yourself and exist in an objective relationship in space and time, in which to maintain that self-image that is your substitute for that perfect idea that you are in the mind of God. Is that true? Does that sound a bit like A Course in Miracles?
Yes.
Okay. So you're coming alive. You're coming alive in the present. We teach, by the way, we teach experience. And the emphasis, as Jesus' emphasis, is always the experience, because it's the experience that will actually teach you. If you apply the lesson, no matter what you think about it, just apply the lesson, and you will have an experience. And the experience will actually teach you something about yourself. It will give you confidence to take another step. It will give you faith and trust that this course, even though it is leading you into fear, will actually lead you through fear to love. It will lead you home. But in order to go home, you have to undo what you have done in your mind that has resulted in a false identity of self that exists in space-time within an illusion in which you live a little life with all your problems, and you get sick and you get old and you die again and again and again and again. It's an endless repetition, and there's no way off the carousel, there's no way off the merry-go-round until what? Until you're willing to take this journey without distance through the darkness of the mind to the point at which you recognize that you are doing this to yourself. And that nothing occurs but represents your wish, and nothing is omitted that you choose. Here is your world, complete in every detail. And here also is salvation. Right? That's this Course in the Course in Miracles is attempting to train your mind to accept responsibility for the power given to you that you have used to make up an alternative reality, a virtual substitute for truth, in which you seem to exist as a little self whose life can be snuffed out. And what we've been teaching today is that it is a willful assertion of the belief that God's perfect Son can suffer, can be crucified, can be weak, can be powerless, can be hurt, can be upset, can be something other than what God has established it to be eternally, for all, forever, unchangeable, immutable. And that's what we're returning our minds to through following Jesus' instructions in this mind training, is to the immutable, unchangeable, and inviolate perfection of mind which exists in the here and now. In this instant, you can come into a very real existential memory of who you are as God created you. And all your problems will disappear. All your pain will disappear. All your suffering will disappear. In no one instant can you die. No one instant can illusions exist as an alternative to the light of reality. That's what this holy instant is here to offer you as you are increasingly willing to accept true forgiveness as an alternative to learned perception, which judges and attacks everything. So that's why God is in everything I see. Because everything I see is attempting to teach me who I am in the mind of God. Everything I see, without my projection on it, without my past learning, will offer me an instant in which the truth will return to my awareness. And it is returning to my awareness. It is returning to your awareness in the here and now. We have an association in the here and now in which truth is present. We cannot be separated because mind is one. In the here and now, we are remembering that. The gap that seems to exist between yourself and myself is no gap. There is no gap between what is true, between mind and mind. There is no gap, unless you insist that there is one, in which case you will believe there is one, but it doesn't make it true. It only means that you believe there is one and you live as though there is a gap between yourself and what appears to be someone else. Yet forgiveness will make that gap disappear, so that you can recognize the your oneness. Forgiveness is an extraordinary and beautiful mechanism for undoing what you have made and looking past or beyond your past learning into the present. And only forgiveness can teach you or show you how to look beyond the past into the present, where your brother has remained perfect and inviolate and sinless. The dreamer of the dream is still whole and perfect. The original nature of mind has not been changed by the dream of judgment and the dream of time and evolution. Your mind cannot change because your mind remains as it was created. Forgiveness teaches you to recognize that changeless mind and to overlook or to forgive everything that has been made that is not in perfect alignment with the original nature of mind, which is whole, which is innocent, which is wholly joyful, which is perfect, which cannot sin. It cannot do anything to change the nature of itself as established by a holy, beneficent creator. God, if you want to call it God.